I didn't notice the extra device until the building was quiet enough that even the Wi-Fi felt loud. One line in a list I checked out of habit. One name that wasn't mine. And one signal that didn't belong inside a locked office. I used to think of office buildings as harmless at night. During the day they're noisy, messy, full of motion, printers, keyboards, doors, footsteps, people you don't know walking past you like you're part of the furniture. But after hours, when everyone goes home and the lights are dimmed to half bright, the same place turns into something else. Not scary. Not haunted. Just exposed. Too much space. Too much silence. I took a night cleaning job at a small marketing firm because it fit around everything else I was doing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was consistent. 4 nights a week, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., empty suite on the 9th floor of a mid-rise building downtown. The company had a nice layout, open workstations, a few glass-walled offices, one conference room that smelled like dry erase markers, and a kitchen corner with a coffee machine nobody cleaned properly. It was easy work. Vacuum. Wipe surfaces. Empty trash. Clean restrooms. Lock up. The only real responsibility was the last part, make sure the doors were locked and the alarm was set. The first week, I barely thought about anything except time. I listened to podcasts through one earbud and moved through the suite like a ghost, only half aware of the building around me. Then one night, around 11:30, I went into the little IT closet by the copy room because my vacuum had tripped a breaker the day before and I wanted to know which panel it was. The closet was narrow and warm, filled with shelves of old keyboards and tangled cables, and the router mounted high on the wall with little lights blinking in a steady rhythm. I stared at those lights longer than I should have. At some point, I started checking the Wi-Fi on my phone out of boredom. The building's guest network was slow, but it worked, and it saved my data. The firm had given me the password on my first day with the same casualness you'd give someone a code for the break room. Most nights I didn't even connect. But that night my signal was bad in the far back hall, so I connected. The network name showed up as something bland, office guest. I tapped it. Entered the password. Connected. My phone loaded an internal login page for a second, then it disappeared. Wi-Fi icon stayed. Nothing special. Except, under the Wi-Fi details, there was a section called Connected Devices. I don't know why I clicked it. Curiosity, maybe. It wasn't something I did at home. It was just there, so I looked. It listed devices the way routers do, random model names, MAC address fragments, generic labels. There were usually 2 or 3. A printer. A thermostat. Sometimes a smart TV in the conference room. That night there were 4. Printer, thermostat, TV. And something called Android 7E2. I stared at it, waiting for recognition to kick in. My phone wasn't Android. I didn't have an Android device on me at all. I thought about the cleaning crew. There were 2 of us, but my coworker had called out that night. I was alone. I thought about the building's security guard. He sat in the lobby downstairs, but he wasn't on this floor. He wasn't on this network. Different access. Maybe someone in another suite was using the same guest network name. Maybe the building used one guest network for multiple floors. That seemed possible. But the router I'd connected to was mounted inside this office. The password was specific. It was written in a binder inside the suite. I checked the device details. It had a signal strength indicator, strong. Very strong. Like it was close. Closer than the hallway. Closer than the stairwell door. Inside the suite. I felt a small, stupid flare of embarrassment at myself, like I was getting spooked by a list on a screen. So I did the reasonable thing. I refreshed the list. The devices blinked. Loaded again. Printer, thermostat, TV. Android 7E2. Still there. I turned off Wi-Fi on my phone. Waited a second. Turned it back on. Reconnected. Checked again. Still there. I told myself it was probably the thermostat mislabeled. Or some old phone someone left connected days ago. Or a glitch. The weird part, though, was that I didn't remember ever seeing it before. Maybe I just hadn't looked. I went back to cleaning. And for the next hour, I managed to push it out of my mind. Until I walked past the conference room and heard something that made me stop. A soft chime. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just the kind of gentle notification sound you hear when a device connects to something successfully. It came from inside the conference room. I stood in the hallway with the vacuum handle in my hand, listening. Silence. I stepped closer to the glass. The conference room lights were off, but the city glow from outside made the glass faintly reflective. I could see my own outline, a dark shape holding a vacuum. Inside the room, the long table sat empty. The chairs were neatly pushed in. The wall-mounted TV was black. Nothing moved. I waited. Nothing. I felt my throat tighten anyway. The chime could have been anything. A building system. An elevator far away. A sound from the street. Sound travels weird in empty buildings. I finished that shift without seeing or hearing anything else. But when I left, I checked the device list one more time. Android 7E2 was still connected. The next night, I came in earlier than usual. Not because I was eager to clean. Because I wanted to test my own sanity. I arrived at 8:45, before most of the building had emptied out. The marketing firm staff were long gone, but other floors still had lights on. People lingered in the lobby. The elevators still felt normal. When I reached the 9th floor, the suite was dark and quiet, exactly as it always was. I unlocked the door with the keycard they'd given me and went straight to the IT closet. The router lights blinked calmly. I connected to the guest Wi-Fi. I opened the connected devices list. Printer. Thermostat. TV. And Android 7E2. My stomach dropped in a way that felt out of proportion. I hadn't even started cleaning yet and there it was, like it had been waiting for me to check. I tried to be logical. Devices don't wait. They connect or they don't. So I did what I'd do at home if a neighbor's device showed up on my network. I changed the password. The binder in the office had admin credentials written in it, which still felt insane to me, but companies do dumb things all the time. I logged into the router settings on a laptop in the IT closet. The admin page loaded slowly. There it was, the list of connected clients. Same names. Android 7E2. I clicked it. The router showed it had been connected for hours. Not minutes. Not recent. Hours. I checked the log. It showed a connection event at 6:03 p.m. The office had been locked since 5:30. No one should have been here. I stared at the timestamp until the numbers started to blur. Then I changed the Wi-Fi password to something random. Saved. The router rebooted. All devices dropped. The list went empty. I waited with my hand on the mouse like I was holding my breath underwater. One by one, the normal devices reconnected. Printer. Thermostat. TV. No Android. I exhaled slowly. That should have been the end of it. I cleaned. I vacuumed. I emptied trash. Every so often, without meaning to, I checked the Wi-Fi list. No Android. I started to relax. At 11:17 p.m., I was wiping down desks in the open office area when I heard that same soft notification chime again. This time it came from closer. Not the conference room. Not the hallway. It sounded like it came from the manager's office, the glass-walled office near the back with the nicer chair and the framed motivational posters. I froze with a disinfectant wipe in my hand. The office lights were off. The door was closed. The blinds were half drawn, but I could still see inside. The desk was empty. The computer monitor on the desk was on. Not bright, not fully lit, but awake enough to show a pale blue glow. That didn't make sense. The computers were supposed to be shut down at night. I walked closer. The glow shifted. It wasn't the desktop. It was a login screen. A username field. A blinking cursor. As if someone had woken the computer and was about to type. I stood there staring, waiting for the screen to go dark again, waiting for an explanation to appear. Nothing happened. The cursor kept blinking. I reached for the doorknob and stopped. Because the door was locked. The manager's office door had a key lock. I didn't have the key. I tried it anyway, gently. Locked. I stepped back, my heart tapping against my ribs in small, measured beats. Then I remembered the Wi-Fi password change. I pulled out my phone and checked the connected devices list. Printer. Thermostat. TV. And Andero ID 7E2. Back. Connected. Strong signal. I stared at the screen until my fingers started to ache around the phone. I'd changed the password. How could it reconnect? Unless someone had gotten the new password. Unless someone was in the suite. Unless the device wasn't using the guest network at all. Unless. I forced myself to breathe. I went back to the IT closet and checked the router page again. It showed Andero ID 7E2 connected to the guest network. The connection time, 0:01. Meaning it had connected 1 minute ago. And it had the strongest signal of any device, stronger than the printer, stronger than the thermostat. Like it was practically sitting on top of the router. I looked up at the ceiling tiles. The closet was tiny. There was nowhere to hide. Just shelves and a mop bucket and cables. Still, I listened. No footsteps. No breathing. No movement. Just the soft fan noise from the router and my own pulse in my ears. I went back out to the main office space with my phone in my hand like it was a flashlight. The manager's office computer was still on. Still on the login screen. I stood outside the glass, staring at my own reflection overlaid on the dim room behind it. I had the sudden, uncomfortable thought that if I saw movement inside that office, I wouldn't have anywhere to put my fear. I wouldn't have a place to file it. It would just spill out into the room. I called my supervisor, the cleaning company's shift manager, and told him something weird was going on with the Wi-Fi and a computer. He sounded half asleep. "Is there anyone else there?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm alone." "Probably IT stuff," he said. "Just finish and leave." I didn't tell him about the Android device. It sounded childish out loud. I finished early. I didn't play music. I didn't take breaks. I cleaned quickly, automatically, eyes flicking to shadows and glass and the far end of hallways. Before I left, I checked the Wi-Fi list again. Andero ID 7E2 was still connected. Then, as I stood at the front door of the suite, keycard in hand, I watched the device name change. It disappeared for a second. Then came back as connected device, with no manufacturer label. Just a blank generic name. Like it had noticed I was watching. I left without locking the door the way I normally did. I closed it and walked quickly to the elevator. When the elevator doors shut, I realized my hands were shaking. The next day, I tried to talk myself out of quitting. I needed the money. I needed consistency. I told myself I was tired, and tired brains make patterns out of nothing. So I decided on a test. If the Android device connected again, I'd stop coming. Simple. That night, I brought a small portable Wi-Fi analyzer app on my phone. Something that showed nearby signals and their strength. I also brought a flashlight, even though the sweet lights worked fine. It was more for feeling than function. I arrived at 9 p.m. The 9th floor was quiet. The suite was dark. I unlocked it and stepped in. Before I even turned on the lights, I opened the Wi-Fi analyzer. It showed several signals in the area: office guest, office staff, building public, and a few random personal hotspots from other floors. Office guest was the strongest, obviously. Office staff was also strong, but locked. Then there was another signal, just above noise level. A hidden network. No name. Just, hidden SSID. Its signal strength pulsed, like it was moving slightly or the device broadcasting it was changing position. I stared at it, trying to decide if I'd seen it before. I hadn't noticed it. That didn't mean it wasn't always there. But it bothered me anyway. I turned on the suite lights. Connected to office guest. Checked connected devices. Printer. Thermostat. TV. No Android. My shoulders loosened. Maybe it was gone. Maybe someone had been messing with me and stopped. I forced a small laugh at myself and started vacuuming. At 9:47, my phone vibrated. A notification from the Wi-Fi analyzer. New device detected on network. I stopped moving. Slowly, I set the vacuum upright like it might fall and make too much noise. I opened the router device list. There it was. Android 7E2. Connected. Signal strength, max. I felt a slow heat in my face, not fear, not yet, but anger. The kind of anger you feel when you're being toyed with, when something is happening and you're supposed to pretend it's normal. I went straight to the IT closet. I stared at the router on the wall. The little lights blinked innocently. I refreshed the connected devices list. Android 7E2. I clicked it again and looked at its details. This time, the device had an IP address in the same range as everything else, but the MAC address was strange. It didn't match common manufacturer patterns. It looked almost randomized. I don't know enough about networking to be confident, but it looked like it was trying to hide. I tried to block it using the router's settings. There was a toggle, deny network access. I turned it on. Saved. The router thought for a second. Then it threw an error. Unable to apply rule. I tried again. Same error. I tried blocking the MAC address manually. Same thing. Like the router wouldn't touch it. I stared at the screen, then at the list. The printer could be blocked. The TV could be blocked. The thermostat could be blocked. But not Android 7E2. My throat tightened. I backed out of the settings and watched the connection uptime. It reset to midnight again, even though I hadn't disconnected it. Then it reset again. Then again. Like it was reconnecting repeatedly. I stepped out of the closet and listened. The office was silent. No footsteps. No doors. No elevator ding. I turned off the suite's background music system at the front desk area just to make it quieter, like that would help. Then I heard something. A tiny sound, not from the vents or lights. A faint vibration. Like a phone on a hard surface. Bzzzt, bzzzt. It came from somewhere in the open office. I stood still and waited. It happened again. Same spot, same rhythm. I followed it, slow, careful, walking between desks. The vibration stopped as I moved, then started again when I paused. Like it was reacting to my movement. I stopped near one of the center desks, the ones used by the design team. The desk had a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, and a small drawer unit. The vibration came again, sharper now. From inside the drawer. I stared at the drawer handle. My hand hovered. I told myself it was someone's forgotten phone. A staff member who left it behind. That would explain everything. I pulled the drawer open quickly. It was empty except for pens, sticky notes, and a few paper clips. No phone. The vibration stopped immediately. I stood there with the drawer open, feeling stupid again, feeling my fear trying to turn itself into embarrassment. Then I noticed a tiny black rectangle stuck underneath the desk surface, near the drawer track. About the size of a matchbox. Smaller, even. It had a single dim blue light. My breath caught. I leaned closer. The light blinked once. Then went solid. I reached under the desk and touched it. It was warm. Not hot. Warm like electronics that have been running. I pulled my hand back as if I'd touched something alive. I crouched and looked more closely. It was attached with double-sided tape. A small device with no branding. No obvious buttons. Just a light and a smooth black casing. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it didn't belong there. I stood up and looked around the office, suddenly aware of how many places someone could hide something small. Under desks. Behind monitors. Inside ceiling tiles. Inside vents. The building around me felt larger, emptier, more available to whoever wanted it. I took my phone out and checked the Wi-Fi list again. Android 7E2 was still connected. Signal strength still max. I looked down at the matchbox device. Then back at the list. A thought formed, slow and heavy. That's it. That's the extra device. My hands shook as I pulled out my flashlight and shone it into the drawer and under the desk. The little device's blue light flickered. Then it went out. In the same moment, my phone buzzed again. Wi-Fi disconnected. My screen flashed. Then reconnected automatically. I checked the connected devices list. Android 7E2 was gone. All the normal devices remained. I stared at the empty spot where the device name had been. Then, slowly, it came back. Not as Android 7E2. As iPhone. I felt something cold move through my chest. Not a chill. Not goosebumps. Just a sudden internal drop, like my body realized something before my mind did. I didn't own an iPhone on that network except my own, and my phone wasn't listed as iPhone. It was listed by a different name I'd set months ago. This wasn't my phone. This was something pretending. I grabbed the matchbox device under the desk and yanked. The tape resisted, then gave. The device came free in my hand. Immediately, it vibrated lightly. Not like a phone. Like a tiny motor or internal mechanism activating. I didn't hesitate. I walked fast to the bathroom and dropped it into the toilet like it was contaminated. It splashed. The blue light flashed underwater, then went dark. I flushed. Twice. I don't know why I did it. Panic and disgust. I returned to the office and stood in the center, breathing hard, listening. Everything was still. No alarms. No footsteps. No doors opening. Just the hum. I told myself it was over. Then I heard the elevator. Not the ding. The movement. A low mechanical rumble that traveled through the floor. The elevator was coming up. I froze. I hadn't heard anyone enter the suite. But the suite door was down the hall, and I was in the open office. Sound could be muffled. The elevator rumble stopped. Then the faint ding. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe properly. I looked toward the hallway that led to the suite entrance. From where I stood, I couldn't see the elevator doors. There was a turn in the corridor. But I could see the reflection in the glass conference room wall. A narrow angle of hallway. And a sliver of the elevator area beyond. The elevator doors opened. In the reflection, I saw a shape step out. Not clearly. Just a dark figure, head down, moving slowly. My stomach twisted. I ducked behind a row of desks without thinking, lowering myself like a child hiding in a game that wasn't a game. I peeked through the gap between a monitor and a desk lamp. The figure moved down the hallway, not toward the suite entrance. Toward the back. Toward me. I couldn't see their face. The office lights were dim and the hallway was darker. But I could see their posture. Purposeful. Quiet. Like someone walking in a place they knew would be empty. I backed up silently, staying low, moving between desks toward the IT closet because it was the only place with a door I could close. My shoe brushed a wastebasket. A soft plastic scrape. The figure stopped in the hallway. I held my breath. The silence stretched. Then the figure kept walking. Slower now. I could hear their footsteps on the carpet, muted but real. I reached the IT closet door and slipped inside, closing it carefully behind me. The closet was narrow, hot, smelling of dust and plastic. I stood in the dark, phone in my hand, flashlight off. The router lights blinked, tiny and indifferent. I could hear my own heartbeat. The footsteps approached. They stopped outside the closet door. I felt my skin tighten around my spine. A hand touched the doorknob. Turned it gently. The door didn't open because I'd closed it, but it didn't lock. There was no lock. The knob turned again, slower, like the person was testing whether it would give. Then they let go. Silence. I waited. Nothing. I wanted to call 911. My thumb hovered over the screen. But I couldn't make myself. Because I didn't have an explanation. Because I was afraid of sounding ridiculous. Because some part of my brain still wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding, that if I stayed quiet it would resolve itself. Then, from outside the closet, I heard a soft sound. Not speech. Not a cough. A brief little chime. The same gentle notification sound I'd heard before. A device connecting. I looked down at my phone. Wi-Fi was on. Connected. The router page was open from earlier. Without touching anything, the connected devices list refreshed. Printer. Thermostat. TV. And Andero ID, 7E2. The connection time, midnight. The signal, maximum. I stared at it, breathing shallowly. How? How could it have reconnected if I just flushed the device? Unless the device wasn't the source. Unless the device was only a piece. Unless. The closet door handle turned again, very slowly, as if the person outside had decided to try once more. Then it stopped. I heard a quiet scrape, like someone leaning close to the door. And then a voice, low and calm, barely louder than a whisper. You moved it. I stopped breathing altogether. The voice wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It sounded almost practical. Like someone stating a fact. I didn't answer. I didn't make a sound. The voice continued, still quiet. That wasn't yours. I felt my throat tighten painfully. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burst out of the closet and run. I wanted to do anything except stand there, trapped in a hot box, listening to someone on the other side who spoke like they belonged. The doorknob turned again. This time, the door pushed slightly inward. Not because it was opening, but because the person leaned their weight against it. The closet door flexed on its hinges. I pressed my shoulder against it instinctively. The pressure increased. Not hard enough to break it. Just enough to remind me the person was there. I realized, with a cold clarity, that if they wanted in, they'd get in. This wasn't a secure door. It was a thin, cheap interior door. But they weren't forcing it. They were waiting. The pressure eased. The voice came again, a little closer. Put it back. My hands trembled. I couldn't control it. I didn't have it. I'd flushed it. I couldn't explain that without opening a conversation, without making this real. Silence stretched again. Then the voice said, almost gently. If you call someone, I'll know. My eyes stung. Not tears yet. Just the raw feeling of fear turning the inside of my face tight. I looked at my phone. My thumb hovered over the emergency call shortcut. And I believed him. Not because he was supernatural. Because he was inside the building. Because he had already shown he could connect to the network, manipulate devices, be in spaces I thought were secure. Because he knew where I was, even though I was hidden. A thought slid into my mind like a blade. He's been watching the cameras. I didn't know if the suite had cameras, but the building probably did. The marketing firm had a lobby camera feed on the monitor in the manager's office. I'd seen it. They watched deliveries and visitors during the day. If someone had access. If someone had planted something. If someone had been inside longer than me. My mind chased itself in circles, looking for an answer that wasn't there. Outside the door, footsteps moved away. Slow. Unhurried. As if the person knew I wouldn't leave. As if the person knew the building belonged to them in some private way. I waited in the closet for what felt like an hour. It might have been 5 minutes. Eventually, I heard the elevator again. The rumble. The ding. The doors closing. Then silence. I didn't move immediately. I stayed in the closet until my legs cramped. When I finally opened the door, the office was empty. Quiet as before. Like nothing had happened. I walked through the suite with my flashlight on, checking under desks, checking behind doors, checking corners that made no sense to check. Nothing. No person. No movement. No sign of entry. Only the normal office smell and the hum of machines. I went to the front entrance and locked it behind me. Then I realized something that made my stomach twist again. The suite door lock was electronic. It logged entries. If someone had come in, there would be a record. Unless they had a keycard. Unless. Or unless they never used the door. I looked up at the ceiling tiles in the hallway. Just looked. And suddenly I couldn't stop seeing how easy they were to lift. How easy it would be for someone to move above the walls in a dropped ceiling, stepping on metal grid supports, coming down wherever they wanted. I left that night without finishing the cleaning. I didn't set the alarm. I didn't care. I got into my car with my hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. The next morning, I told my cleaning supervisor I was done with that location. He argued. Said we had a contract. Said I couldn't just refuse. I told him there was someone in the suite at night. He asked if I'd called the police. I didn't answer. He sighed the way people do when they think you're being dramatic. Those office people forget devices all the time, he said. Probably just IT testing. I hung up on him. That afternoon, I called the marketing firm's main office number. A receptionist answered. Bright voice, daytime cheer. I asked if their IT department had been doing overnight testing the past few nights. She paused, confused. Overnight, she said. No. Not that I know of. I asked if there were cameras inside the suite. Yes, she said. Lobby and entrances. Why? I told her I'd been the cleaner and I'd noticed odd activity on the network. There was another pause, then her voice lowered. Can you hold for a second, she asked. I waited. Listened to soft hold music. After a minute, a man came on the line. Calm, careful. He introduced himself as the operations manager. He asked me to explain everything from the beginning. So I did. I kept it simple. The extra device. The password change. The login screen. The small tape device under the desk. The person in the hallway. The voice at the closet door. I expected disbelief. Instead, there was a long silence. Then he said, quietly, "You said it was taped under which desk?" I told him. He exhaled slowly. "That's the desk we had a problem at last month," he said. "What kind of problem?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Did you remove it?" "Yes." "What did you do with it?" I hesitated. Shame and fear tangled together. I got rid of it," I said. His silence turned heavy. Finally, he said, "Okay. Don't go back. If anyone from your company contacts you about it, tell them you're not available. And if you see anything strange on your personal network at home, call the police." My skin prickled. Why would I see anything at home? Another pause. Then he said, "Because we've been dealing with someone who likes access." He didn't elaborate. He thanked me, told me someone else would handle it, and ended the call. I sat on my couch afterward, staring at my phone, feeling a slow dread unfurl in my stomach. Someone who likes access. That phrase stuck with me. Too casual. Too practiced. Like he'd said it before. For a while, life went back to normal. I found another job. Different building. Different hours. More people. But once you notice how invisible networks are, it's hard to unsee them. At home, I changed my Wi-Fi password. Then changed it again. Then bought a new router and changed it again. I started checking connected devices too often. Laptop. Phone. Smart TV. Everything normal. Until one night, around 1:30 a.m., I was lying in bed scrolling through nothing when my phone briefly lost Wi-Fi and reconnected. It happens sometimes. But this time, I opened the connected devices list out of habit. Laptop. Phone. TV. And something else. Connected device. No label. No manufacturer. Signal strength, strong. My mouth went dry. I sat up in bed, heart tapping. I refreshed the list. It disappeared. I turned Wi-Fi off and on again. Checked. Nothing. I stared at the empty list, then at the ceiling, then at the bedroom door. I told myself it was a glitch. But the fear didn't come from the possibility of a device. It came from the memory of a voice outside a closet door saying, calmly, "You moved it." And the feeling that the most terrifying part of the night at the office wasn't the unknown device, or the hallway figure, or even the threat. It was the patience. The certainty. The way whoever it was spoke like they weren't breaking in. Like they were returning to something they'd already claimed. I slept with my phone on airplane mode after that. 4 weeks. Maybe months. I stopped checking the device list. I stopped looking for hidden networks. I tried to go back to believing that if something was dangerous, it would look dangerous. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet and the only sound is the faint electrical hum of my own apartment, I still catch myself thinking about a single line in a list. One extra name. One extra presence. And how easy it was for it to appear. How easy it was for it to disappear. And how, for a moment in that empty office, I understood something I'd never wanted to understand. Most people don't realize they're being watched. Not because the watcher is invisible. But because the watcher doesn't need to move. They only need you to check the list. And notice you're not alone. The last time I connected to a public Wi-Fi network, I did it without thinking. Coffee shop. Midday. Normal life. My phone joined automatically, like it always does. For a second, a notification appeared near the top of the screen. New device connected. Then it vanished. I didn't click it. I didn't open the list. I didn't look. I finished my coffee and left. But as I walked to my car, I couldn't stop feeling like something had followed me, not a person, not footsteps. Just a quiet, unseen connection. And the worst part is, I'll never know if it was real. Because I learned the hard way that some things only exist the moment you decide to look at them. And once you do, it's hard to convince yourself they're gone.